George H.W. Bush lost the 1992 presidential election to Democrat Bill Clinton following an economic recession, conservative independent Ross Perot running as a third candidate taking Republican votes away from Bush, and Bush's turnaround on his tax promise, and the decreased emphasis of foreign policy after the Gulf War in a post-Cold War political climate. Bill Clinton was young, played a saxophone on popular entertainment shows, and came across as a moderate Democrat. He promised prosperity and a social platform that was attractive to a population that was economically exhausted. Both Democrats and Republicans have their stellar entries and most corrupt for various reasons, usually with regard to their political activities, often being self-serving. Now we examine the presidency of William Jefferson Clinton, who accomplished much as president, but he also brought his own controversies into the White House with him. Who is Bill Clinton? Was he a successful president? What were his controversies? How far back did his alleged criminal activities extend?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
William Jefferson Clinton was born on August 19, 1946, in Hope, Arkansas. He graduated from Georgetown University in 1968 and later from Yale Law School, where he met his future wife, Hillary Rodham. After graduating from Yale, he became the state attorney general, then served 2 non-consecutive terms as governor of Arkansas. While governor, Bill Clinton's brother, Roger Clinton's drug addiction and drug dealing saw him arrested in 1984 as part of a sting operation in Arkansas, ironically overseen by his state and federal law enforcement. Bill was apparently unaware that Roger was involved, or so he said. Per United States International, Roger was charged with 5 counts of distributing cocaine and 1 count of conspiracy to sell cocaine. Following the indictment of Roger, Bill publicly discussed his feelings about the controversy, calling it a time of great pain and sadness for his family. Clinton would later pardon his brother, who would still run afoul of the law later for DUI in California. Clinton's 2-term presidency was rather successful and saw the longest period of peacetime economic expansion in American history. He opened foreign markets and investments and worked with Republicans and helped create the conditions for a record 115 months of economic growth. He signed the controversial North American Free Trade Agreement, which cost American jobs eventually, after his presidency, in his second term, with companies moving overseas for cheaper operating costs and labor, creating an imbalance in trade with Mexico and Canada. But Clinton's economic policies were a mixed bag, such as his pushing for China to be accepted into the World Trade Organization, which has proven to have been an unnecessary self-inflicted wound and proven failure that has now metastasized. China offered cheap labor for foreign companies to operate by using slave labor in many cases, and imposed strict Communist Party controls over those businesses to include access to proprietary and trade secret information. The relaxed relations with China saw the theft of U.S. nuclear weapons secrets and other sensitive information by Chinese nationals living in the U.S., and total inaction by Clinton, who allegedly received campaign donations from China violating the law. A House committee had prepared a classified report on the matter, and a Senate panel planned an investigation. The result of this investigation was posted by the Los Angeles Times, who reported, "The chief of China's military intelligence secretly directed funds from Beijing to help re-elect President Clinton in 1996, former Democratic fundraiser Johnny Chung has told investigators." A $300,000 Chinese deposit into Chung's account was funneled into the Clinton campaign account, which was corroborated by financial records in the United States and Hong Kong, according to law enforcement and other sources. Chung says he met 3 times with the intelligence official, General Ji Shengde, who ordered $300,000 deposited into the Torrance businessman's bank account to subsidize campaign donations intended for Clinton's 1996 re-election campaign, according to sources familiar with Chung's sealed statements to federal prosecutors. During their initial meeting on August 11, 1996, in Hong Kong, Xi conveyed to Chung the Chinese government's specific interest in supporting Clinton. This was a quid pro quo for allowing China into the World Trade Organization, beginning the offshoring of American jobs. Chung pled guilty to violations of election laws, resulting in a sentence of probation and community service. Bill Clinton also signed the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Acts into law in an attempt to take repeat offenders off the streets and increase the numbers of police nationwide, but he failed to pass national health care reform. President Clinton's 1994 crime bill enacted a new initiative to increase local law enforcement by 100,000 police officers. He also signed into law the Family and Medical Leave Act, which helped 20 million Americans. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Clinton enlarged NATO to include the former Soviet satellites of Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic, and convinced Russian troops to withdraw from Poland and the Baltic states. However, Clinton's methods fell under intense scrutiny. He supported President Boris Yeltsin and funneled billions of dollars in loans to Russia from the International Monetary Fund, bypassing congressional scrutiny and approval. In 1999, evidence suggested that much of the borrowed money was in fact stolen by an organized criminal syndicate, which included members of Yeltsin's own family. The Clinton-Gore administration oversaw the dismantling of more than 1,700 nuclear warheads, 300 launchers, and 425 land and submarine-based missiles from the former Soviet Union, and these efforts in nuclear arms reductions removed the likelihood of a nuclear exchange between the superpowers. During his 8 years in office, 22 million jobs were created in less than 8 years, the most ever under a single administration, and more than were created in the previous 12 years. The home ownership rate also increased from 64.2% in 1992 to 67.7%, the highest rate ever until the Trump administration, with the lowest unemployment than in the previous 10 years, only exceeded by the Trump administration from 2017 to 2020. Education standards and school choice increased, and education and training investment, as well as financial aid for students, doubled by increasing Pell Grants to the largest award ever, expanding federal work study to allow 1 million students to work their way through college. Also, 95% of schools were connected to the internet. Clinton's era also witnessed the lowest crime rate in 26 years. His administration also had the smallest welfare rolls in 32 years, again only to be exceeded by the Trump administration. After falling by nearly $2,000 between 1988 and 1992, the median family's income rose by $6,338 after adjusting for inflation, created the lowest poverty rate in 20 years. Another benefit was the lowest teen birth rate in 60 years and the lowest infant mortality rate in American history. Between 1998 and 2000, the national debt was reduced by $363 billion and the largest three-year debt paydown in American history, converting the largest budget deficit into the largest surplus in history, assisted by the lowest government spending in 3 decades. Clinton also enacted specific cuts such as the Earned Income Tax Credit expansion, $500 child tax credit, and the Hope Scholarship and Lifetime Learning Tax credits. He also appointed more African Americans, women, and Hispanics to cabinet positions than any other president in history until Joseph Biden, who eclipsed Clinton in diversity hires, which has unfortunately damaged the country. His foreign policy was also somewhat interesting. Weeks before Clinton took office, outgoing President George H.W. Bush had sent American troops into Somalia on a humanitarian mission to combat famine, but it fell apart in a bloody fight on October 3, 1993, at the Battle of Mogadishu. The public was appalled, and Clinton withdrew all U.S. forces by March 1994, replaced by UN peacekeeping troops until 1995. Somalia was a totally ill-advised failure, and that country still does not have a functioning government today. The failure of the Somalia mission and disastrous outcome led to the resignation of Secretary of Defense Les Aspin and created the impression of a president who was exceptional on domestic issues but totally incompetent in foreign affairs. But this would not be Clinton's last questionable foreign policy controversy. 1994 was very eventful, as Clinton managed to have Russia withdraw troops from the Baltic republics of Estonia and Latvia after the collapse of the USSR, which was considered a remarkable success, and rightly so. Then, Clinton sent 20,000 troops to Bosnia, which is predominantly Muslim, to join NATO peacekeepers after a civil war broke out in the former Yugoslavia after a bombing in Sarajevo in 1994 and another in 1995. NATO launched a heavy bombing campaign against the Serbs over strife between Yugoslavia and ethnic Albanians in the Serbian province of Kosovo, but without considering the evidence. Many believed that it was to bolster his international image. After Somalia, Clinton attempted to remove Haitian strongman Raoul Cedras, who had overthrown Haiti's president Jean-Bertrand Aristide in a 1991 coup. Former President Jimmy Carter stepped in to negotiate with the brutal military dictator for his removal from power. Cedras, accompanied by retired General Colin Powell and Senator Sam Nunn, Democrat from Georgia, Carter communicated Clinton's threat to invade unless the generals of the junta relinquished power. With American planes in the air overhead, the generals buckled and agreed to leave. The United States military was sent to enforce the agreement, but the troops were eventually withdrawn. But in April 1994, a genocidal massacre erupted in Rwanda, where an estimated 800,000 Tutsi and others were murdered by the government. Clinton did nothing to intervene, relying upon the United Nations. See our video, The Real Hotel Rwanda, on the Rwandan genocide. According to journalist Seymour Hersh, who wrote in The New Yorker on November 1, 1993, that Clinton's first bombing of Baghdad on June 26, 1993, which killed 8 civilians, was ostensibly for an attempt by Saddam Hussein to kill ex-President George H.W. Bush. But in fairness to Bill Clinton, there was some truth to this allegation, and Saddam had also violated several conditions of the 1991 Gulf War ceasefire agreement. Clinton then again bombed Iraqi air defenses and some civilians on September 3rd and 4th, 1996, to make Saddam Hussein pay a price for sending troops to Kurdish Iraq, and for flagrant violations of the northern and southern no-fly zones, and for using poison gas. This was considered a political move since the U.S. presidential voting was only 2 months away. By showing toughness, he could further his re-election after being called wishy-washy and anti-military. One writer believed that Clinton, in expectation of cheap oil and huge aircraft sales, intentionally advanced Saudi desires for an Islamic state in Europe. But Bill Clinton's foreign actions were soon to become the subject of investigations and public scrutiny as to his real motivations, as personal scandals exploded and threatened his presidency. Civil war finally broke out in the former Yugoslavia between Serbs, Bosnian Muslims, and the ethnic Albanian Kosovo population, which was also Muslim. The United Nations was involved, and Clinton authorized a bombing campaign, but the timing was in question, and here's why. Again, according to Hersh, Clinton had been mired in controversy over his Bosnia policy, and White House staffers advised that bombing Baghdad would improve Clinton's political standing at home and his diplomatic standing in the Middle East. Past and present intelligence officials told Hersh the acceptance of the Q80 allegation was based on conflicting and dubious evidence. Political leaders were also starting their own investigations into Clinton, dating back to his days as Arkansas Attorney General and Governor. The Whitewater scandal arose when it was determined that Bill and Hillary Clinton, along with their friends Jim and Susan McDougal, bought 230 acres of riverfront land for $203,000 with the intention of selling it as vacation home lots, as reported by the New York Times. The deal was ultimately a bust, and Jim McDougal bought a savings and loan association and renamed it Madison Guarantee. He ultimately defrauded both Madison Guarantee and another small business investment firm called Capital Management Services to the tune of $3 million. According to the New York Times, the scheme cost the federal government, or the taxpayer, around $73 million, and 15 people were charged for their role in the scandal. Jim McDougal died in prison in 1998. The Clintons, however, were never charged and were never accused of wrongdoing in this event. They have adamantly maintained they had no involvement, which may be true. Questions about the Whitewater dealings, however, surfaced during Clinton's 1992 bid for the presidency, with the Justice Department eventually opening an investigation into the matter and an illegal $300,000 loan provided to the McDougalls. 1 month prior to his death, attorney Vince Foster had filed 3 years of delinquent Whitewater corporate tax returns and was said to be plagued by the evolving ethics investigations into the Clintons. The media went wild. But other more serious accusations were coming. The problem started when a woman named Juanita Broderick, in a 1999 interview on Dateline NBC, alleged that Clinton raped her on April 25, 1978 in a motel room during a gubernatorial campaign stop. According to Broderick, she agreed to meet with Clinton for coffee in the lobby of her hotel, but Clinton asked if they could go to her room to avoid a crowd of reporters, and she agreed. Quoting Broderick, "He turned me around and started kissing me, and that was a real shock. I first pushed him away. I just told him no. He tries to kiss me again. He starts biting on my lip, and then he forced me down on the bed. I was just very frightened. I tried to get away from him. I told him no. He wouldn't listen to me." Broderick stated that Clinton injured her lip by biting it during the rape. She said that Clinton told her to put some ice on that. Broderick called Hillary Clinton an enabler of her husband's behavior. She also accused Hillary Clinton of pressuring her not to speak about the rape back in 1978. In a 1998 NBC interview wherein she detailed the alleged rape, Broderick said she had denied under oath being raped only to avoid testifying about the ordeal publicly. "Bill Clinton raped me and Hillary Clinton threatened me," she said. But she also apparently said there was a witness, an Arkansas state trooper who drove Clinton, and he was in the motel. More problems arose for Clinton when Jennifer Flowers came forward during the 1992 presidential campaign and said she had been Clinton's mistress for over a decade. Immediately after the allegations surfaced, Clinton denied having a relationship with Flowers in an interview on 60 Minutes, with Hillary sitting beside him. In 1998, Clinton admitted to having a sexual relationship with Flowers, but he stated it only occurred once in 1977. A campaign staffer, Sandra Allen James, accused Clinton of sexually assaulting her in his hotel room in 1991. She claimed that he exposed himself to her and forced her to conduct oral sex on him while they were sitting on the couch. But things only got worse when Paula Jones alleged that, in 1991, Clinton coaxed her to a hotel room where he made unwanted sexual advances towards her, including dropping his pants and asking her for oral sex. In 1994, Jones filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against Clinton that in 1998, the Washington Post said opened a Pandora's box of allegations about Clinton's past sex life and made him the first sitting president ever interrogated under oath as a defendant in a civil lawsuit or before a grand jury as a criminal target. Discovery proceedings in the Jones lawsuit also played a role in uncovering the Lewinsky scandal. Clinton and Jones reached a settlement in 1998 in which Clinton agreed to pay Jones $850,000 but admitted no wrongdoing. Clinton's attorney, Robert S. Bennett, maintained the allegations were baseless after the settlement was reached, although there was evidence. And there would be others, such as Elizabeth Ward Grayson, Kathleen Willey, Dolly Kyle Browning, Leslie Milwee, Eileen Wellstone, Karen Hinton, and Sally Perdue, also known as Myra Bell Miller, a former Miss Arkansas. However, the most explosive situation occurred when Monica Lewinsky entered the picture. Their sexual relationship began in 1995 when Lewinsky was 22 years old and lasted 18 months, ending in 1997. Clinton was impeached for lying during the investigation after DNA on the famous blue dress was proven to be his semen. Later, he admitted to the affair. Linda Tripp, a career civil servant, moved from the White House to the Pentagon and began taping conversations she had with Monica Lewinsky, the former White House intern who had just begun working in the Pentagon with her. In the tapes, Lewinsky detailed the affair she had been having with President Clinton since November 1995.
I never expected to feel this way about him, and I'm not kidding you.
Lewinsky later told prosecutors that Clinton encouraged her to be evasive to investigators during the meeting. The lies helped him weather the initial squall, shore up Democratic support, and push back against his accusers. "The lies saved me," the president confided to a close friend, according to journalist John Harris's book, The Survivor, perhaps the finest book on the Clinton presidency. It was not until the summer of 1998, when we learned that Monica Lewinsky had preserved the famed blue dress, did Clinton grudgingly concede the truth on national television. A poll taken immediately after the speech showed that a favorable rating of 60% 5 days earlier had dropped to 40%. On December 19, 1998, President Clinton was impeached by the House of Representatives and charged with perjury and obstruction of justice. However, the case was dismissed by the Senate. After his lies were exposed, Clinton requested airtime from the networks for a televised confession. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. But then he carpet-bombed his accusers for mounting a politically inspired investigation led by Kenneth Starr. This has gone on too long, cost too much, and hurt too many innocent people. This time the strategy backfired, with senior Democrats such as Senator Dianne Feinstein expressing dismay. Senator Joe Lieberman, a Democrat and Orthodox Jew who had long seen himself as a moral elder, condemned him on the floor of the Senate. Many were appalled by Clinton's behavior. With his scandals mounting as well as his impeachment story, on March 24, 1999, Clinton ordered an 11-week bombing campaign which replaced Clinton on the TV news and newspaper front pages. The U.S. and other NATO forces hit the Serbs with air-launched missiles, bombs, and bullets. Again, the timing was suspect. But the sex scandals were not going away, and on August 20th, Clinton bombed Afghanistan and the Sudan. The news upstaged the Lewinsky scandal. Clinton claimed he was fighting terrorists, but it was soon discovered that one of his terrorist targets was Sudan's only medicinal factory, indicating haste in planning the raids for political reasons. In early December 1998, the biggest news concerned impending congressional proceedings on the impeachment of Clinton. The question was scheduled for House floor debate on Thursday the 17th, with voting likely the next day. On Wednesday the 16th, Clinton again bombed Iraq, claiming it was not cooperating with UN inspectors. Consequently, the House postponed the impeachment matter for a day, and Iraq took over the headlines. Killing a couple of hundred Iraqis, the bombings continued until impeachment was voted upon on December 19th. Controversy would arise again in 2001. During Bill Clinton's last day in office, he would pardon more than 100 people who'd been convicted of crimes in an act that's become known as the Clemency Caper. According to a statement released by the White House, the divisive list included the former president's brother, as reported by CBS News. He was pardoned for his 1984 arrest for cocaine possession, although he had already served his full sentence in prison. Roger would be arrested for drunk driving less than 2 months after he was pardoned. In 2016, while his sister-in-law Hillary was running for president, TMZ reported that Roger was arrested yet again for a DUI. Charges of sexual misconduct on Bill Clinton's part resurfaced during the 2016 presidential campaign of Hillary Clinton, when a lewd recording of Hillary's opponent, Donald Trump, discussing the ability to grope women when in power or by being famous was released during the campaign. Broderick, Willie, and Jones re-emerged as critics of Hillary Clinton, accusing her of enabling her husband's alleged sexual assaults on them. 2 days after the release of the recording, they appeared as guests at the second 2016 presidential debate and referenced Bill Clinton in pre-debate statements. Then, in November 2017, sources within the Democratic Party told author and former foreign editor of Newsweek, Edward Klein, that Clinton was being accused of sexual assault by 4 more women. The plaintiffs alleged that the assaults took place shortly after the end of his presidency in the early 2000s, while they were in their late teens. A member of Clinton's legal team confirmed the existence of new allegations against him. By late 2017, the sexual abuse allegations against Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement, with liberals and feminists reconsidering their lack of support for the alleging women at the time. Michelle Goldberg wrote that Broderick's allegations meant that Bill Clinton no longer has a place in decent society. The hypocrisy of women must be believed unless it was Bill Clinton faded away. When asked in 2018 whether he would have approached the sexual misconduct allegations differently in the wake of the Me Too movement, Clinton said that he would not. When he was asked if he owed Lewinsky a personal apology, Clinton said that he did not. Bill Clinton did a lot that was positive as president, but he was able to work with Republicans to accomplish domestic goals for the nation. However, his personal life is a different story. In recent years, the Clinton Foundation has also fallen under severe scrutiny for the failure to actually provide financial relief to organizations and nations for which it touted. Allegations being made that the foundation is simply an illegal foreign donation machine to bolster their personal wealth and political objectives. William Jefferson Clinton had high positive milestones as president, but he also had personal controversies that the mainstream media chose to ignore and, in fact, still cover up today.
Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.